Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is your brother Hawayala. I want to give all glory and praises to our Heavenly Father Yahweh in the name of our Lord and Savior Yahawashi. Grace and mercy be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth that are waiting on the second coming of our Lord and Savior Yahawashi Hamashiach. This particular lesson, of course, just going into a little bit about who the world knows as Queen Elizabeth II, the Queen of the United Kingdom, who had passed away yesterday at the age of 96. And, basically, we know that a lot of people are out there mourning and feeling some kind of grief about it. But we know a lot of people don't look at that the same way, especially people that know the history and people that have directly suffered during her reign. So what we'll do is just going to go into like a video that shows us a brief overview of her history, and we'll discuss, some of the things that were pointed out in that as well.
December 1936, a moment that forever shaped a young girl's life. After ruling less than a year, King Edward VIII abdicated the throne to his brother.
A new reign began in Britain as the Duke of York was crowned King George VI,
making King George's eldest daughter, then Princess Elizabeth, known as Lilibet to family, next in line to the throne. 10 years later marked a marriage. The couple would go on to have 4 children. In 1953, Queen Elizabeth II was crowned, the first to be broadcast live on television.
a story of a queen who wrote bright pages in the story of the year.
The Queen kept a busy schedule of diplomatic duties, traveling across the globe more widely than any other monarch before her.
Yeah, and the reason why she was traveling around the world is because when she came into her reign, as really, remember, she's more of a figurehead than anything. If anybody knows about the history of, basically the rulership and crowns in the United Kingdom, or what is now became known as the United Kingdom, you'll know that the Parliament was created under, Cromwell. Cromwell and a group of men basically created the Parliament, and the Parliament overthrew the crown, which was during that time the descendants of King James. I believe during that time, that was when Prince Charles was supposed to be going into rulership, and he had to flee. And then later on, they brought in the Windsor family, which came out of the Saxe-Coburg line out of Germany, to basically replace them as figureheads later on, many decades later, you could say, because I believe they had another family that took over. I don't know if it's from the Netherlands or from one of these other countries outside of England, to basically take over as the figureheads of, being the kings and queens of England. And then as the empire continued to expand, that's when they started putting the crown under these different realms, which we'll get into. Some of those they're not going to talk about, but think about this. Anywhere where English is spoken as a language is pretty much where the realm of the British Empire extended. And even some places that later on took on other languages from other colonizers, they at one point were under the British crown as well. So let's go ahead and continue on, and we're going to kind of talk about some of these areas that she, presided over.
Meeting with just about every U.S. president since being crowned. With no political power, the Queen wielded the influence of a figurehead. In her private life, things weren't always easy. Her 40th anniversary on the throne marred by separation, divorce, and estrangement in her children's marriages, and a fire at Windsor Castle.
It has turned out to be an annus horribilis.
Then in 1997, the death of the People's Princess. Through it all, Prince Philip was, in the Queen's words, the strength and stay of her reign. He died in 2021 before his 100th birthday after more than 70 years of marriage.
It's just been one of the great royal romances, I think, of history.
In London, I'm Riley Carlson.
All right, so we know that a lot of people feel some type of way, especially in these former British colonies. or British protectorates. A lot of them were still actually viewing her as queen legally. They even had her face on their money, on some of their money, like their coins or their paper money. Okay, so, and then they have areas that are actually like designated like for her as well. Some of them even have like little palaces and things that they built for her when she comes, where she'll stay and be lodged at. Someone like this wouldn't lodge at like probably a regular hotel when they come to these particular countries, right? So I'm gonna show you, this is actually a video from Ceylon, which actually Ceylon was the former, actually today it's known as Sri Lanka. So Ceylon is actually what Sri Lanka used to be called. I believe their capital is Colombo. And in this particular video, she's visiting that region because there's some turmoil going on, which this turmoil was tied to the British crown and their influence, or the British colonizers and their influence in that region. Okay, so she was coming there to act as a figurehead to represent on the behalf of the United Kingdom and their empire that they still had, and even loosely still have to this day. So she came there to basically cheer up the people, because the British government was going to do their work on whatever was going on, whether we're going to send agents from MI6 or whatever to overthrow a government, or to, of course, put somebody else in power. And then, of course, you have their different in its interests, economic interests that they have in that region as well. So they bring, Queen Elizabeth II to soften up the hearts and minds of the people. Okay.
Her Majesty the Queen and Prince Philip are greeted by the Governor-General Lord Salisbury as they step ashore from the liner Gothic at Colombo. Ceylon, an island smaller than Tasmania, yet with a population as large as that of Australia, has been protected by Britain for nearly 150 years. But never in all that time has there been such a day of excitement as this. Escorted by candy and dancers, the Queen drives through the capital to the town hall. At the town hall, one of the most imposing buildings in the fine modern city, the Mayor and Mayoress of Colombo present the royal visitors with garlands of native flowers. Many local personalities are presented to Her Majesty and the Duke, who appear perfectly cool despite the intense heat.
So you see, that should be her husband, right there, and then that's Queen Elizabeth, and then you have the different dignitaries of at that point known as Ceylon, talking to him. And I mean, come on, man. Anybody that knows how Edomites are towards other people, especially those that they oppress directly, they look down upon them. Okay. And that they really probably hated, shaking their hands. I mean, if these type of people really have a real weird disposition about themselves, okay? These people really, really despise those that they rule over, okay? And that's why they were able to do it so effectively, because, in order for them to be so heartless against people for hundreds of years that they had empires and realms over, you gotta not like those people, okay? Because there's atrocities that they've done against them in all these different countries around the world, all the native peoples of these lands, the people that they enslaved and took into slavery and into their new world, or even into their places as well. A lot of people don't know that Britain had a lot of slaves that were brought to them as well. There's actually like one of their cities, I forgot, I don't know if it's Liverpool, but there's actually one of their port cities was a city where they brought a lot of slaves there. And I remember seeing a video about it, like a little documentary about a part of Britain where they were brought to, and how a lot of the people that were freed, that their descendants remained in those particular towns, okay, after they were freed from their slavery, okay. So a lot of people don't even know a lot of that history in regards to that. And, there's still things even still coming up that, you got, if you search for it, or, you happen to run across it, you're like, wow, this is just more stuff indicating, the evils of these Edomites. Okay. We're just dealing with just one branch of these Edomites, which is the British people. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue playing the video, and then we'll get into, a response that was made, by a group.
Later, in the Independence Memorial Hall, the Queen is to declare open the island's parliament. The ceremony is held here so that many thousands may watch through the pillared walls of the hall. As at Wellington and Canberra, Her Majesty wears her magnificent glittering coronation gown for the occasion. Even the local people find the heat oppressive, but the Queen seems quite unaffected, although this is probably the most humid day of the whole tour. From the Prime Minister, Her Majesty receives her speech from the throne. In her address, the Queen refers to Ceylon's disturbed political situation, but expresses her belief that with mutual confidence, a solution will be found. Preceded by members of Parliament, the Queen and her husband...
So they had a parliament, as you notice here, and they're wearing the British traditional wig garb, okay, as part of their regalia. Isn't that interesting? That's pretty much it right there. But this is just what was going on, and these type of things, these type of events and ceremonies, those that are still alive and those that see these things happen, because this happened many times over the years, where they will pop up to these different countries, and this has an impact, an impression upon the people and their descendants after them. And that's why you got a lot of people from these places, they're mourning, they're crying, they're just being super coonish in these different places. Okay. Some people are not down with it, but a lot of people, they are down with, mourning and crying over this woman as if she was righteous. But we're going to get into some of the atrocities. It's just, and by the way, over the we're talking about, this is a 70-year period. We're not even talking about which is a long reign, right? As a figurehead. We're not even talking about the early exploits of the British Empire in its early stages going back, 400 or 500 years. This is just showing a snapshot of just some of the things that happened. Okay, and it's going to be gone over in this article. Now, this article, by the way, is it's from the iHarari, and this is what it says. It says, "May Elizabeth and her ancestors get what they deserve. South Africa's opposition party, EFF, refuses to mourn the Queen." Okay? They refuse to mourn the Queen. Now, we're going to go into what they said. So it says here, South Africa's opposition party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, has refused to mourn Queen Elizabeth II following her demise on Thursday. The United Kingdom's longest-serving monarch died at Balmoral, aged 96, after reigning for 70 years. While politicians across the world have shown courtesy and conveyed their condolences, the EFF has announced it will not mourn the Queen. In a statement released shortly after Queen Elizabeth II's death, EFF said it would not mourn the monarch because her death is a reminder of the tragic colonial history suffered by Africans. EFF argues that Queen Elizabeth was a beneficiary of the wealth accumulated from colonialism and never once condemned or acknowledged the atrocities inflicted on native people that Britain invaded across the world. South Africa's opposition party goes on to say it hopes Queen Elizabeth is judged in the afterlife. After death, they must know it after death by pain. Now, as far as her, we know scripturally that she has to come back, okay? So guess what? She has to be ruled over with rigor, okay? and be exploited, okay, for the elect of Israel in the time to come. Okay, so she's not going to escape this. Okay, she's not going to escape this, and neither are any of the people, the oppressors, the Edomites that did these atrocities. And see, what a lot of people don't know, and this is one of the problems with modern day Christianity, is that modern day Christianity, the way it's constructed, actually allows Queen Elizabeth to float into heaven, because she's viewed as somebody who she didn't directly put yokes of iron on people's necks. She didn't directly pull a trigger. She didn't directly take and steal from people, but she benefited from it, but she didn't do it directly. So in Christianity, that means she was nothing she did wrong. If you ask the likes of Vocab Malone, she didn't commit no sin directly. And even then, when you point out the people directly that did these things that she was tied to, these people will still absolve her of any blame. All right? And that's the beauty of understanding the scriptures, that these people that did these things, they will be brought to that judgment. Okay? That's what we have patience and faith in. Okay? That she's going to suffer. Okay? Her husband, Philip, that died last year, he's going to suffer too. Oh, all her descendants, all her kids are going to suffer, and all the people around them, okay, the parliament, all the people that did all the things, the wickedness across the earth, they're going to all eventually come to that condemnation. All right? So let's go into the history that this man's going to point out. Okay, so this is Thursday, the 8th of September, 2022. Says here that the economic freedom fighters notes the death of Elizabeth Alexander Mary Windsor, the Queen of the United Kingdom and the ceremonial head of state of several countries that were colonized by the United Kingdom. Elizabeth ascended to the throne in 1952, reigning for 70 years as a head of an institution built up, sustained, and living off a brutal legacy of dehumanization of millions of people across the world. Actually, billions of people across the world, because the territory in which that she was ceremonial head over and influential as a former realm, like India, okay, like Ceylon, like Bengal, okay, or Bangladesh, Pakistan, different West African countries, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya. Then you got all the British Isles, okay, all the British Isles. You also got, different places that also were former British territories, Canada, the United States. I believe Canada still even recognized her as their direct queen as well in their constitution. All right. So when you go into these areas, when you add up the population of all these areas, we're talking about billions of people. We're talking about probably 1.2, at least probably 1.5 billion people, really probably more than that, probably close to 2 billion people, when you add up all those areas. Okay. And in those areas, various groups of people, whether it was the natives themselves or various groups within those places, and the people that were taken into slavery, our people that were taken into slavery into the New World colonies, suffered dehumanization. Okay, which dehumanization is actually a precursor to genocide. Did a lesson on it, dealing with the whole aspects of what are the steps that lead to people being victims of genocide. And one of those final steps is dehumanization. Once you make them not human anymore, now it's very easy for them to be victims of various atrocities, which has happened under the rule of Queen Elizabeth, okay? And they're going to get into it. They're going to break it down. The EFF goes on to say, we do not mourn the death of Elizabeth because to us, her death is a reminder of a very tragic period in this country and Africa's history. Britain, under the leadership of the royal family, took over control of this territory that would become South Africa in 1795 from Batavian control, and took permanent control of the territory in 1806. From that moment onwards, native people of this land have never known peace, nor have they ever enjoyed the fruits of the riches of this land, riches which were and still are utilized for the enrichment of the British royal family and those who look like them. Because this is what these Edomites do, man. They act like they didn't do it. They act like they didn't, do these atrocities. This is what he's talking about. Micah 2. All right. So, woe to the oppressors. So he's speaking about an oppressor, okay? Woe to the oppressors, meaning death and destruction to you. He said, yeah, you and your people should also suffer the same fate as well. We hope that you get destroyed in the afterlife, okay? Which, again, afterlife also can include the kingdom of heaven, meaning the afterlife that you're living after the life you've already lived, okay? Meaning the suffering that you're going to suffer under the rulers in the kingdom of Israel, all right, which will be set up when Yahawashi returns with his elect, okay? So it says here, starting at verse 1, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. All right. So look at that. So, I mean, it's very, very obvious. And that's the reason why they're getting this work, all right, from those around the globe, letting them know that we ain't mourning this death. And guess what? The rest of your peoples, y'all should get this work as well. Y'all should have untimely deaths, which they're not having that right now. Because listen, they're in the power seat. Satan is not going around and petitioning the Most High to put her to death at an early age, an untimely death. These people, these rulers of this world, they live long. They live very long and wicked lives. Okay, while our people live, strenuous lives and die before our time, die young. Okay, die in middle ages. Like, that's the type of suffering that our people go through, especially the men. Let's go back to this paragraph from 1811, when Sir John Cradock declared war against the Amakosa, which is a tribe in South Africa, in the Zerveld, in what is now known as the Eastern Cape. Okay, y'all heard about Cape Town. Okay, that's where this war occurred in 1811, up until 1906, when the British crushed the Bambatha Rebellion. Our interaction with Britain under the leadership of the British royal family has been one of pain and suffering, of death and dispossession. Dispossession means that your possession being taken away. Your lands, okay, your houses, your resources, and of dehumanization of African people. We remember how Nxele died in the aftermath of the Fifth Frontier War, how King Hinsa was killed like a dog on the 11th of May, 1835, during the Sixth Frontier War. Man, there was a lot of war going on over there, man, in South Africa. They were going up against the Dutch. They were going up against the British. They had the Edomite settlers that they called the Boers. They had the Boer Wars. Well, there's a lot of battles and wars going on to hold on, but ultimately, you're dealing with Esau. He's got the sword, the blessing, okay, from that was given to them, and that's what reason why they were able to overcome all these different peoples, because they had that blessing. All right. So it says here, and had his body mutilated and his head taken to Britain as a trophy. Yep. That's what they did to those different people when they came to those different lands. They would mutilate their body, chop their heads off, and then put them in jars and then have them in museums, sometimes really in the royal houses where they can go to and say, this is King Hinsa, and this is his head. Yep, this is his head. They'll go over the history with their friends, family. They'll laugh and drink wine over it. You know what I'm saying? That's what they do. This is what they do. Look up, there's actually whole articles that even the BBC wrote about how the British royal family has all these heads of these different people that they destroyed and ruled over. Okay? Got them in jars. That's how sick these people are. Okay? Where were we doing that type of stuff? Where were ancient Israelites, just preserving heads in jars of the enemies that they slew? They slew them, they chopped their heads off, they might hold them up, put them in the middle of the city for people to see that this man has been taken down. And after that, their people come and take the head and the body and they go and bury them in their lands. The heck? But these people, straight demonic. It was also the British royal family that sanctioned the actions of Cecil John Rhodes, who plundered this country, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. It was the British royal family that benefited from the brutal mutilization, okay? It was the British royal family that benefited from the brutal mutilation of people of Kenya, whose valiant resistance to British colonialism invited vile responses from Britain. In Kenya, Britain built concentration camps and suppressed with such humane brutality the Mau Mau rebellion, killing Dedan Kimathi on the 18th of February 1957, while Elizabeth was already queen. This family plundered India via the East India Company. It took over control and oppressed the people of the Caribbean islands. Their thirst for riches led to the famine that caused millions of people to die in Bengal, and their racism led to the genocide of Aboriginal people in Australia. Elizabeth Windsor, during her lifetime, never acknowledged these crimes that Britain and her family in particular perpetuated across the world. In fact, she was a proud flag bearer of these atrocities, because during her reign, when the people of Yemen rose to protest against British colonialism in 1963, Elizabeth ordered a brutal suppression of that uprising. During her 70-year reign as queen, she never once acknowledged the atrocities that her family inflicted on native people that Britain invaded across the world. She willingly benefited from the wealth that was attained from the exploitation and murder of millions of people across the world. The British royal family stands on the shoulders of millions of slaves who were shipped away from the continent to serve the interests of racist white capital accumulation, at the center of which lies the British royal family. If there is really life and justice after death, may Elizabeth and her ancestors get what they deserve. Ooh. That's scathing. That's real scathing. I believe this is the leader of the EFF. And see, that's the thing, as much as these Edomites try and act nice and act like they're sensible, well-meaning people, the history exposes them, and their current actions expose them. That's why it's important to know history. This letter right here was a history lesson. I'd advise you, brothers and sisters that may be interested, Google some of these things that he's talking about to get more in depth and detail about, what was being said. So let's go to this. This is a Wikipedia, it's just showing her her death, 70 years reign, which is the longest reign of any British monarch. And then it has here, shows her spouse, Prince Philip, who died last year. Is the Duke of Edinburgh. Her issue, of course, Prince Charles, who's now King Charles III. You know about Prince Andrew, okay, who had the scandal with the whole, issue with the, what was going on, the whole issue, the scandal with the child rapist molestation scandal. So you see here, in fact, they actually have right. Yeah, here it is. So she was queen regent of 32 different sovereign states. Okay. So these are the sovereign states. She had the Commonwealth realms. In fact, let's go ahead and look into the sovereign states first. Okay, the list of sovereign states headed by Queen Elizabeth II. And they'll even show you the reign. Now, peep all these places, man. Okay, in green means former realms, realms at her death, ceremonial titles, and unrecognized realms like Rhodesia. And look at all these places right here. Now, the reason why the United States is not on here is because the United States, of course, we know about the Revolutionary War. They no longer recognize the King of England as king. And that's what led to there no being recognition of former realms on by the time, you know, she came into power. Okay, so, but look, I mean, people wouldn't have known some of these places. You wouldn't have known that Ghana and Nigeria recognized her as a queen of that territory up until their independence in those places. In fact, in some of those places, she was recognized even after independence as still queen as well. All right. So these are all the countries. Remember, the ones in yellow were the ones that she was recognized as queen over, okay, until the time of her death. Okay, and these are a lot of countries. All right, so now we go to the Commonwealth realm. And you can see the countries shaded in dark blue were the current realms that she had, okay, that she was considered monarch or head of state of, which now has moved over to who is known as Prince Charles. By the way, Prince Charles is the same one that was married to who the world knows as Princess Diana, who had her two sons, which are currently considered princes. And I believe the next up would be Prince William, who is the first son of Prince Charles. And so he passes, then he will become king of the United Kingdom. Okay. So let me see the list. Here's the list. Now, mind you, some of there's overlap with the other list, which is the sovereign states. Okay. So, as you see there, Antigua and Barbuda, Australia, the Bahamas, Belize, Canada. A lot of people don't know that Canada recognize her as the Queen of Canada. Grenada, Jamaica, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and Grenadines, the Solomon Islands, okay, even the remote islands, to Uvalu, okay, in the United Kingdom. I mean, some of these places people can't even point out on a map. Heck, even I would have a hard time pointing some of these out on a map. Okay? And that's how far and extensive their territorial realm was. And this is, remember, this is just one branch of the Edomites. This is just the British branch. And by the way, speaking of British, I mean, let's just look at how the falsehood of this. By the way, like I said earlier, King James, she's not a descendant of King James in the house of King James, by the way. In fact, we'll get into that right now. Let's see. It has the House of Windsor. Remember, her last name is Windsor because she comes from the House of Windsor. Now, this house comes from the Saxe, Goldberg, and Gotha branch. All right. So let's go ahead and click there. Now, we're going to show you that her lineage does not go back to Britain anyway. Okay. Now, so we clicked on the House of Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha. This is the founder. Okay. The founder is Ernest I, Duke of Saxe, Coburg. Okay. And then we can see that he died, okay, in Gotha, okay, which is his home, which is the hometown of this line. And this Gotha is in Germany. Yes, the country Germany, District Gotha. All right. So we go back. Boom. We're going back. We're just tracing that line back to the House of Windsor. Okay. Which tells you is a line of the House of Saxe Gotha. And it tells you the different lineages, the different peoples, and it tells you right here, came out of that branch. It says the House of Hanover to the British monarchy with the ascension of King Edward VII, son of Queen Victoria. And then it says and Prince Albert of the Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha. And then it says in 1917, the name of the British royal house was changed from the German. You see that? They changed it from the German. And see, they had to do that because they were trying to cover up their tracks. As newspaper print became more prevalent and people were trying to get more access to books, they was like, look, we need to just change this. We need to cover up our tracks a little bit. From the German Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha to the English Windsor. So they just changed their name so that people wouldn't know that they're actually Germans. And why would they do that? What was happening? 1917? Okay, wasn't it in the middle of a war? Wasn't World War I going on? Wasn't Britain going up against the Germans? Why would you let the world know that your crown is actually German by descent, while also trying to promote anti-German sentiments? That's why they did that. Look at this. The name of the British royal family was changed from the German Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha to the English Windsor because of anti-German sentiment in the United Kingdom. So they had to change their name to Windsor. They had to change their name to Windsor because of the anti-German sentiment in the United Kingdom during the First World War. Like, hold up, we're actually German. Our names are German. Then our people are anti-German because of this war. What do we do? Change our names. That's a good idea. That's why they're now known as the House of Windsor. See, what I like about Wikipedia sometimes is that they will actually break things down for you, man. Break down some history for you. So, that's a funny thing you find out, man. Just exposing these people are not even the descendants of King James, bro. You got people around the world that really believe that they're descendants of King James. Meanwhile, the Parliament under Cromwell was actually trying to destroy the whole line and effectively did put away the rulership of the line of King James and later his son, which would have been Prince Charles. It's just a weird thing that, these type of histories is out there, but people won't even read nor acknowledge it. And if you show it to them, they don't even care. It doesn't even register that this is a weird thing. Okay? So let's go ahead and go to the book of Job. Job chapter 20 and verse 5. That the triumphant, in fact, let's start at verse 4. Knowest thou not this of old, since man was upon the earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite is but for a moment. Okay, because even though we went into that article and the statement from the EFF that the what we view as a long history is actually short, and it's up but for a moment. So their triumphing thing is a very short period of time in history when you look at the grand scheme of things, right? And it's eventually going to come to an end. Okay, and this is not just for the British Empire, the British Crown, the British sphere of influence, but all the branches of Esau that basically came around the world and did much wickedness, which much wicked oppression, okay, across the earth. And their reign is going to come short, okay? It's going to come to an end brutally, that the world may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men and giveth it to whomsoever he will. That's why he's going to give it up to Jacob, okay, to the Israelites, the elect, okay, of his people. Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and his head reach unto the clouds, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung. They which see him shall say, where is he? He shall fly away as a dream, and shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night. The eye also which saw him shall see him no more, neither shall his place be any more behold him. His children shall seek to please the poor, and his hands shall restore their goods. Yep. Because, she went around the world after she was crowned queen, and was, seeking to please the poor by basically being used as a pacifier, okay, while her people were stealing all them goods, okay, and they're going to have to restore them to the rightful owners, okay, because these things are going to be given, to the elect, okay, because even these other nations outside of Edom, they're going to, when they have these resources, they're going to have to give, they're going to be tributes. They have to give tributes, right, to the Israelites that will be reigning on the earth, first with Yahawashi and with his elect, okay. So it's going to have to happen in that order. And that's how things will be restored. All those fancy jewelry that she had, and that they have that as a, they have actually a set of jewelry that's passed down to from in the British royal family. That's got to be given over too. Gold, right? All the precious jewels, everything that they have, be taken back. Now, what we'll do, we'll actually go ahead and go down further. Let's see we got a lot. It's so much. This whole Job 20 is just straight ether. No pun intended. This is we'll go in verse 27. The heaven shall reveal his iniquity, and the earth shall rise up against him. The increase of his house shall depart, and his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath. Whose house is he talking about? It's talking about the house of Esau, which shall be for stubble. This is the portion of a wicked man from God, and the heritage appointed unto him by God. Yeah, because his heritage was to be set up in this way in the very end. And we'll go ahead and finish this off with the book of Malachi, chapter 1 and verse 1, which is a good precept that lines up with this. The burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith Yahweh. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother? Said Yahweh. Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. So when we go back to this Job, it says, this is the portion of a wicked man from God, and the heritage appointed to him, unto him by God. See, the increase of his house, it didn't matter. He still took it away in the day of wrath. Right? So going back here. Okay? And laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Okay? Meaning we're going to get back up. We're going to get our riches. We're going to take what's ours. Okay? We're going to take these goods, these resources, and we're going to be up. But what thus saith Yahweh, the Lord of hosts, they shall build, in which they did. They built their empires, including the one we're talking about today, which is one of their branches, the British Empire. They shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. Right? So this right here is just a reminder of what has happened over the last few hundred years under just the British rule. We ain't even talking about France. We ain't even talking about the Germans, the Dutch, okay, Spain, Portugal. We ain't even talking about them yet. Okay, we're just talking about just the British Empire. And we know that the Lord is true to his word. He will, okay, allow them to build up, but he will eventually throw down. So with that, I want to give all glory and praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahawashi. Grace and mercy be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom.